You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 21 Questions, the Q&A show on KCSN, brought to you by our good pals at Macadoodles. You are familiar with Macadoodles if you're in Kansas City, because Macadoodles is in Kansas City. They are in Lee's Summit, Missouri. They got a brand new location also in Jefferson City. They are a wonderful, wonderful liquor store. If you haven't gone there yet, go there. Ask the good people what their recommendations are for you. You're going to walk out with something that is really top-notch quality, exactly what you want for a cheap price, because that's exactly who they are. We love them here. I personally love them, and I love my good pal Charles Goldman getting to join us once again. Buddy, it's Denver week, so of course we had to reach out to our Colorado brethren here to talk a little bit on 21 Questions. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be back on here with you. I'm excited to answer some questions for the Chiefs Kingdom.
That's right. That's right. And these questions come from our KCSN Discord channel. You get access to that if you are a subscriber to KCSN Daily. Charles writes an article every single day for KCSN Daily. You can sign up for free for that via email if you want access to the Discord, as well as some film breakdowns and other content coming from me, Maddie, and Kent. You can sign up for $30 a year or $5 a month. That's great. We've seen some of those. I saw some people gifting some of those for Christmas. That's a great one. So we got to see more people in the Discord. So we had some new names and some new questions here. We're starting with somebody who's been around for a long time. Grayson here asks, are people overreacting to Justin Watson drops/play? Or is it just him getting run over other players that's the issue? Charles, we haven't really gotten your Justin Watson thoughts. I've certainly given mine. Maddie has profusely given his. What do you feel about Justin Watson and his role in the offense right now?
I think one thing that maybe doesn't get talked about enough with Justin Watson and his role in the offense is how much like Patrick Mahomes and his trust plays into that. I feel like if that was a guy that he didn't trust, that he didn't have faith in, that he didn't think could play that role, he wouldn't be doing it. Now, last couple of weeks hasn't been great. I know he had like 2 drops last week, some big drops, but also, cold weather game where the football's like hard as a rock. I don't know that I can really, in that specific game, like just go in on him and be like, hey, like we gotta see something different here. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of guys were struggling with the football in that game. The thing for me with Justin Watson is like, I see his role on special teams and the success that he's having there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, let's get this guy more involved there. If he's having success, like, let's put him in the best position to succeed. He's clearly not having success in that role in the offense right now, specifically when it comes to catching passes, which that's your job as a receiver, right? Catching passes. So I feel like maybe dialing him back a little bit, it doesn't have to be all the way, but dial him back a little bit, boost his snaps up on special teams where we're seeing positive gains. And, maybe it'll kind of level out a little bit.
Yeah. I think that that's a great point about Patrick Mahomes, because I think too often we get hung up in the, Andy,
Right.
Joe, the wide receiver coach, Joe Blameyer, Eric Bieniemy, whoever you want to call it. It's like, well, they're the ones that are putting him out there right now. They're the ones that are doing all of that. Listen, if there was a problem, if there was a serious problem with Justin Watson being on the field, if Patrick Mahomes didn't feel like he was a guy that could help him, or if he felt like, hey, Kadarius Toney should be out here if he was healthy, obviously. Sky Moore should be out here if he was part of the offense more. If he felt like that was going to improve the offense and make life easier on him, guess what? He'd do it. He doesn't want to play with one arm behind his back. I know we get to see him do all sorts of crazy stuff all the time with maybe one arm behind his back, but he doesn't want to play that way. So, yeah, that's a great point. Patrick is certainly not going to the coaching staff and saying, hey, listen, we got to make a change here. He's obviously still comfortable with what Justin Watson is doing on the field right now. Jay Spruill asks a question here because Reportedly, rumor has it that Steve Spagnuolo's contract is up after this season. I know we don't always get contract details for defensive coordinators here. He asked the question, could Todd Bowles be the next defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, assuming he's not the head coach for the Buccaneers next year? Charles, we'll just take this kind of in a broader sense because Todd Bowles obviously has connection to Andy Reid. Would make a ton of sense. Like he would be on a short list right now if there was an open defensive coordinator position. What are your thoughts on Spags, retaining Spags, bringing in a new defensive coordinator, things of that nature? Let's just kind of open it up to the broad defensive coordinator conversation right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's reasonable frustration with Spags right now. But at the same time, I mean, I think the story hasn't been written on him, right? Like, there's still, these final 2 games of the regular season, which admittedly you're not going against the best of offenses, but like that's also like a bar. Like, I mean, you got to hold these offenses down these last 2 games. You can't let those guys come in and give you trouble. And then I mean, I think the other thing for me is like, let's see what happens in the postseason, right? Like, if the defense goes on to carry on this performance from this last week through these next several games into the Super Bowl, and they end up winning the Super Bowl in the back of a dominant defensive performance, we're going to be praying that Spags stays, right? Like, it's going to flip the entire script on the season, I think, to an extent. And I think it's one thing if he wants to walk away, if he's comfortable walking away, says, okay, I've done my part, I'm retiring, what have you. I don't think that there's going to be a situation where he's fired or where he's replaced with somebody else, especially not directly after a season where, he's playing a ton of rookies, getting a ton of rookies out there. I think they're going to at least give him another shot, no matter what happens this year, unless, of course, he decides to walk away on his own.
Yeah, I do. As the season had kind of gone along, if you would have asked me mid-season, did I think that Steve Spagnuolo was going to be the defensive coordinator for this team in the next season, I would have said no. I just think that we didn't see the kind of traditional Steve Spagnuolo uptick. We didn't see some of the positive signs of growth as this season has closed out. And yes, they are not playing the best of offenses, but it kind of happens every single year. This is what happens when you play the AFC West. You're going to have the Broncos. You're going to have the Raiders. You're going to have some teams that maybe aren't on the same level as you. And those are confidence builders. You want to be firing on all cylinders when you get into the playoffs. And he has. Like, this team has built off of those performances time and time again in Steve Spagnuolo's tenure and built up to a dominant defense, or, a semi-dominant defense. We talk about it all the time. Steve Spagnuolo is an ultimate game planner. He is a really good defensive coordinator when the chips are on the table. Like, got to have it in this moment. I mean, if you think back to all these performances that the Chiefs have had in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, with Steve Spagnuolo on the opposite side there, what do you think of? You think of good defensive performances. At the very least, you think of adequate defensive performances. You're not looking at any of those, and going, man, they got run out of the building, except for the Bills game that Tyrann Mathieu went out hurt. Like,
for me, the word is clutch, right? Like, yes. I feel like the word is clutch. I mean, I feel like those moments that they've needed to step up in the playoffs, they have. Usually it's been Frank Clark, right?
I know. I mean, and see, that's the thing. Like, we get so wrapped up in the regular season element of this, and we know Andy Reid, and now we've had enough experience to know that Steve Spagnuolo just basically takes those cards, put them up next to the chest. We're going to keep them right here. When we get into January, February, that's when we're going to start dealing. Like, that's when we're going to start playing. Bill Belichick did it for decades, basically. You want to be strong in December. You want to be strong in January, February, peak at the right time. Week 2 doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So it's one of those, we will wait and see. I do think if they do move on from him, if Todd Bowles is out there, Todd Bowles is going to get some serious consideration. I think that Joe Cullen would get some serious consideration. Defensive line coach for the Chiefs right now. They brought him in for a reason. They moved Brendan Daly to linebacker. I know that they talk about how they want to get those guys tons of experience. Brendan Daly has been a defensive line coach for most of his life, and he was very comfortable there. Joe Cullen is a really good defensive line coach. I mean, look at him this year. Like, they've really progressed. I could see the team looking at that. We will see. It's going to largely depend on how that kind of ends. I'm with Charles there on that point.
I'll throw another name out there. Dave
Yeah,
Merritt.
let's do that.
Dave Merritt.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he's been working with the secondaries, former linebacker himself. I think that, this year he's taken more of a role working with both the safeties and the cornerbacks than he has in previous years with Sam Madison going to the Dolphins. I feel like he's a guy who could sneakily, if they wanted continuity, if they wanted to stay with some of the guys on this staff, I think that he's someone they could just insert right in that role if Spags retires.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar coverage philosophies as Steve Spagnuolo as well, has really done well to develop young players in the past. That's where your young players are. You got a lot of rookies there that you don't have a ton of investment in, but they're playing above kind of what we've seen. So yeah, Dave Merritt makes a ton of sense. That's a great call. All right, Julian K. Karloftis Stan. Does Eric Bieniemy finally get a head coaching gig now that we've seen the offense be just as dominant without Tyreek? I know that everybody's you're immediately screaming right now about Travis Kelce's comments in his podcast this week about how Andy's calling the play. Andy's always called the plays, guys. Always. It doesn't matter who he called them with Doug Peterson. He called them with Matt Nagy. That hadn't mattered. So, he's always called the plays. What do you think? Do you think that this year measurably changed Eric Bieniemy's chances at a head coaching job?
I do think there's a bit of that perception, like, hey, he's done it again. This is a top offense in the NFL, the top offense in the NFL without the best receiver in football. And he's still the best receiver in football. You go look at what he's done with Tua Tagovailoa in Miami. So I think that, that certainly helped him. But I'm going to give the NFL some credit here, too. I think Bieniemy and Reed talked about this kind of this week, too. The accelerator program that they did for minority coaches and front office members that they started last spring, I think that really helped out because you're getting these guys now in an informal setting, interacting with NFL ownership, with other people in these front office staffs, in these coaching staffs. You get to see them in a different light than you do in an interview setting. And I think that has broken down some legitimate barriers that were previously there, specifically for a coach like Eric Bieniemy. So I think that is something that that'll play a role. I mean, depending on how many vacancies there are this year, I think he has as good a shot as anyone else out there to get his job this year.
I think so as well. I said on the game preview this week, Maddie kind of popped the question real quick. Who's Denver's next coach? I think it's Eric Bieniemy. And I do think that he's a guy that, not to completely rehash my argument, but he makes sense from a standpoint of holding people accountable. And it seems like some accountability is needed in that room. We can harp on Andy Reid calling the plays, play designs, things like that. Eric Bieniemy helps with the game planning, helps with the accountability, helps that offense be its most efficient self. And sometimes as a head coach, that's what you need. A guy that can connect with players, a guy that can get the most out of them. It doesn't have to be purely an X's and O's guy.
Right.
Like we can look at countless coaches that we look at and it's like, man, that guy's a genius. Can't be a head coach. Like, it struggles to become a head coach. I can see the polar opposite working. Not that Eric Bieniemy's a bad play designer or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, but I can see him coming into that role and getting a good offensive coordinator, getting a good defensive coordinator, and running the day-to-day at an exceptionally high level and demanding excellence, and players responding to that. So I said Denver because I think that organization could actually do with what Eric Bieniemy brings to the table there.
So I gotta like kind of ask you then with Denver. I know we were having a little chat about this before we went live, but
Yeah.
Russ, what would I mean? Do you think that his personality would mesh with Russ? You
No.
think they would work well? No.
No, I don't. And I think that might be for the better for not to make a divisional rival better, but I think that might be for the better for Russ and for that offense.
Yeah.
Listen, they have the ability to run the ball. Like nobody is questioning that. Come up with that philosophy. Give the ball more to Javonte Williams. Run some of the shorter stuff. Install some of this stuff. Gets the ball out of Russell Wilson's hand quicker. Don't rely on him to play hero ball.
Yeah.
We look all the time of it's been following him around his entire career. Oh, let Russ cook, and all of that. Guess what? When Russ cooks, doesn't always work out the best. When it's run heavy stuff, when it's stuff like that, where you're establishing things and you're working off of that, that's when we've seen him be at his best. And I think that that's what it can be. And frankly, this season, ideally for that organization and for that quarterback in particular, should frame things a lot differently than maybe they were going into this season. And so a new voice coming in demanding something different maybe than was out there before, it could change things for the better for them. I hope not, but I mean, I hope for success for Eric Bieniemy, but I hope that they never turn that organization around ever. But it would make sense to bring in a guy like that and know that, hey, we're going to give him a year. We're going to give Russ a year, a chance to blend with him. If we still see these issues, if we still see these behaviors, guess what? We know what the problem is, and you move on at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway. Okay. Let's see here. Towin asked, what are your backgrounds? He asked, I think, predicting that it was going to be Matt and Craig here, but Charles and Craig, did you play, coach, or just students of the game? I'll lead with this one. Student of the game. That's all. Barely played. Did not coach. Have a lot of coaches in my family and stuff like that. My grandfather was a defensive backs coach for 30 odd years. Is probably why I'm obsessed with defensive back play, but no, just love the game. Love sitting around and absorbing knowledge and trying to, pass it along. And at this point now, I just try and stay out of the way when I let people with a lot more knowledge than me talk about the game.
Yeah, I student of the game here mostly as well. I played a little bit of running back in high school. I played a little bit of running back in high school. My nickname was Chunk Muffin because I was kind of a chubby kid. I used to run kids over, man.
You and Colin Saunders, man. Oh,
that's why I've been preaching to get Colin Saunders more involved on offense, man. I see him and I see myself.
Listen, man, I'll tell you what we need to do is we need to figure out a way for the Chiefs to let us get Colin Saunders his own show, and we're going to call it Former RBs featuring Colin Saunders and Charles Goldman. And you two are just going to, I love it.
I'd love it. It'd be great. I'm sure we would have some fun with that. No, I mean, right. Student of the game.
Yeah. All right. Mike Denny asked, what's the coolest thing you gave for Christmas? Mine, that Charles is wearing it right now. I gave my whole family that hoodie. But I love being able to buy Charlie Hustle stuff with KC Sports Network on it and give it to family.
I'm usually like a zip hoodie type of person. So I wouldn't usually go for this, but it's the most comfortable hoodie I've owned in my life.
Just saying.
It's literally since I've gotten it, I don't think I've tried to not take it off. Like it's that comfortable.
Listen,
might be the most comfortable piece of clothing I own.
I know. See, this is like what 3 months in or 2 months in, however long it's been since we've had that stuff from Charlie. This shirt is ridiculously comfortable as well, but man, that hoodie, I want to live in that hoodie. I literally want to live in it. Just I don't need a house. Just give me the hoodie. I'll live in the hoodie.
All right. The gift for me, I mean, the coolest thing I gave, actually, you can kind of see it back here. I gave my wife this picture here. It's me and her and my dog in like Animal Crossing characters. I hired an artist to make it. It's cool. I really like it.
No, that's awesome. I love that.
Gave that to her. Somehow it ended up in my office on this little shrine I have back here with all this random stuff. But yeah, I would say that was probably the coolest thing that I
love that. All right, Carrender asks, does Clyde Edwards-Helaire have a role to play in the playoff run? I mean, we're 2 games away. Clyde Edwards-Helaire still on IR. What do you think, Charles? You think we see him at all for the rest of the year?
I think it's going to be one of those things like with Blake Bell, where it was like everyone forgot about him. Suddenly, tight end gets injured, and Blake Bell's ready to come back. I think they've kind of, I mean, Clyde's had, high ankle sprains before. He's had the hip. He's had these issues before with the lower body. And I think it's really stunted his career to this point with the Chiefs. And I don't think they're in any hurry to bring him back, being that, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco are doing phenomenal right now.
Oh, yeah.
And frankly, you bring that guy back off of IR, you have a roster crunch. You can't really, you're going to get rid of Ronald Jones to make room for him. I don't know that you do that at this point of the season. If someone gets hurt, I think you're going to see him pop up again. He'll have a role, probably would be limited.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, Joel Penfield. Have the Chiefs been playing 5D underwater chess with Sky Moore all year just to unleash him on the world in the playoffs? No. No.
So, I mean, it would be a nice little fan fiction for us, but and it probably that would make you feel a little better about the situation with Moore so far. I think we got to be realistic. I think the Chiefs are still figuring out what he does best and how to kind of harness that and use that within the offense. And I think, I mean, Andy said it this week that you're seeing growth from it. Specifically, he had a good screen play where
a couple guys miss. Yeah,
a couple guys miss on the sweeps and the end around stuff now that they have him on. He's not trying to go, all the way to the sideline and stretch it out. He's getting upfield and getting positive yards. I think you're also seeing, I saw someone share a play. I don't remember where it was, but he was blocking and they were like, oh, I don't know about that block. I thought he did a good job with that block. I thought if the goal was to wall off the defenders and create that lane on the inside, that was a good block. Yeah. So I think you're seeing that little bit of evolution within the offense, and maybe earlier this season we would have seen it if they weren't trying to, force him to be a punt returner. I don't know. I think that might have a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. He was the Chiefs' primary punt returner going into the season. We have seen Andy Reid and Dave Tobe use guys in ways, try and get the ball in their hands, get adjusted to NFL game speed. I mean, recently, it was just talked about Jameson Williams for the Detroit Lions, elite gunner at Alabama, was finally healthy enough to get in for the Lions. And you know what he did? They played him at gunner because they wanted him to get adjusted to what NFL players move like. Even a guy like that at Alabama that has seen nothing but pure speed from that defense.
Nothing but NFL players, right?
Exactly. He still needed the time to adjust to an NFL game speed and the way that things are done. Now you're talking about a smaller school guy in Sky Moore. They wanted to get him some reps at punt return, and they kept putting him back out there. And we saw that question that entire time. It's why do they keep putting him out there? That was his role. They wanted him to keep getting that role. They wanted him to keep getting those opportunities so that he can learn some of that stuff. But if you can't take care of the ball, can't get those opportunities, now all of a sudden you're getting no opportunities. I don't expect that we're going to see some big unveiling of a package for him at this point. And honestly, I think the signing of Kadarius Toney, or the trade for Kadarius Toney midseason, should have told you that as well. I think that was the one where it was just hey, listen, this Sky Moore thing, we're going into next year. We're going to see what we got from him at that point. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But this year we needed to make a move, so we made the move for Kadarius Toney. I think it's more likely that we see Toney a lot more featured as the playoffs go along than maybe some big, pull back of the curtain for the Sky Moore trick plays or package of plays there. Okay. Zach Oracle Fomagorkin asks, what qualities make one great? I don't know. So I have no idea.
I think it's got something to do with the beard, maybe.
Beard? Okay.
Beard.
I'm
I
fine
think
with
we'll
that.
go with the beard.
All right. Jay the Fan 1. If the two of you were against each other in a do or die dance-off competition, which Chiefs player would you choose for your competitor to have to dance with? Charles, who's it going to be? First of all, the idea that you and I are having a do or die dance-off is fun to me. Like, I wouldn't normally participate in one, but opposite of you, I think that the viewers win in that.
I'm gonna be really disappointed if someone in the Discord does not like have some fan art of this dance off at some point.
You just said your name, buddy. Like, just go ahead and have that.
Who am I forcing you choosing your competitor to have a dance off with? Is that what that is?
No. They're partnering with you.
Oh, they're partnering with me.
Yeah, or Travis choose for your competitor to have to dance with. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Jay the Fan wrote it. You were correct. You were absolutely correct.
Well,
man, that's tough.
Who are you gonna have to dance? Oh man, Orlando Brown Jr.
Oh man, okay, that's fine. Me and Lando are just going to talk about that foxtail the entire time, and we're just going to be our dance team name is Length. That's what it's going to be. It's just all going to be undulating arm movements.
Knowing my luck, he's probably like secretly like a really good dancer.
Yeah. He's got sweet feet out there.
He plays tennis. I don't know tennis.
It's true.
Tennis players,
it's true. Charles, I'm saddling you with George Karlaftis because I'm not.
He's got no. Oh, gosh,
my man's on about his 8th sack celebration. I know he doesn't have 8 sacks, but he's on about his 8th sack celebration right now. Obviously, still working
he used to
through
play water polo, so we're gonna do some sort of water dance or something.
Oh, okay. We are definitely doing this now. Everybody wins on this one.
Oh, boy.
All right. Let's do Casey from KC next here. Do we underestimate the likelihood of upsets this time of year? Impact of injuries, player coach late season motivations, improvement of poor teams, etc. How do you feel about that, Charles? I mean, like, again, it's the NFL. Everybody's still trying hard, as we just talked about.
I don't think that it's going to be a thing this week. I don't think the Chiefs were having any desire to look over this Broncos team. They know that they like dropped the ball last time they played this team. Like, they could have shut the Broncos out had they just kept playing the way they were playing. But Patrick Mahomes tried to fit a couple balls in when there wasn't a window, and next thing you know, defense sudden change, putting some points up. It's I think they were going into this game already knowing, like, here's the things we need to improve on. Like, they've improved on them these last couple of games, playing some turnover-free football this last week. That was good. I think that they were never going to overlook this Broncos team. And now even more so with the coaching change, I think that just puts even more of an emphasis on it. And I don't particularly buy the whole boost that teams get from an interim coach, especially this late in the season. Guys are just trying to get to the off season healthy and go hang out with their families and what have you. I don't think they're really going to go hard for a coach, an interim head coach, mind you, who was hired in the middle of the season and was probably like the third second or third choice for the interim head coaching job. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I mean, we were just talking about this beforehand. Like, Evero turned it down. Evero said, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want that."
He wanted no part in it because I don't think he had any faith that it could be turned around, that it would help him become a head coach or whatever goals he had. And
you want to convince me that defense is going to play hard for Evero? I'm fine with that.
They will. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. But I don't know. We do see that happen kind of ever so often, as seasons go along. Like, I think we all remember the Miami one from a couple of years ago where Kevin Harlan was calling both games. Like, there are upsets that occur. I think that this year there's a very
Chiefs do it. Remember 2012 against the Green Bay Packers? They were undefeated, right? And the Chiefs were just hapless that year. And here comes Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to town and Arrowhead, and a little bit of magic, and all of a sudden. So I mean, it's possible.
Kyle Orton, Tomba took over that game. I mean,
I was convinced at one point that he should be the quarterback of the future for the team.
I think he was very content to be a backup. Like, that man just wanted to be a backup. Yeah. Now, I talked to DJ about that one a couple weeks ago, and his comment was basically like, "Yeah, we were a bad football team, but that day we weren't. Yeah,
that day we were a good football team.
We were a good football team." So yeah, get that one. All right, Zach Cementerax. I love this question. This one's a great one. In a world which all weapons, both conventional and firearm, are non-existent, gladiatorial combat is decided by picking up and throwing regular objects at one another until one relents while avoiding whatever's thrown at you. It's basically dodgeball, is what he's suggesting here. Yeah. What everyday item do you give Patrick Mahomes that makes him unbeatable? And also, regular kitchen knives are covered under conventional weapons. So no knives, right? No regular kitchen knives can be utilized here. Do you have one that comes to mind?
An everyday item, like maybe like kittens. I don't know, it's an everyday item, but some people have kittens. Just
chucking kittens at people.
Feral kittens, maybe.
I mean, that's not a bad one. I mean, I suppose that would count. Yeah, no, that's a pretty good one. I mean, I was gonna say a bowling pin. Mean, because he could do some damage just chucking that thing from all sorts of different arm angles. Like, you could, and bowling pins hurt. Like, I have been hit with one, but they hurt, man. Those things are solid. So I was gonna go bowling pin. Everyday items, kittens and bowling pins. Most common things that you have around your house. Feral kittens. Yeah. All right, Tojo 144. Assuming that Juju comes back next year, what would you give up for DeAndre Hopkins? That's a question right there. Like, I love thinking the big picture, throwing that much assets at wide receiver. I don't know that the Chiefs are going to do that. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Juju's going to cost a lot of money.
Also, I mean, if Hopkins is on the market, like, you're going to see other teams go after him in a big way, because we've seen, especially teams that have like an established quarterback but don't have that number one guy, because we've seen the success that Josh Allen going out and getting Diggs, now Tua going out and getting Tyreek. I think that a team that thinks they're there, that think they have their guy, but are just missing the weapon, they're going to surrender more than we have seen for a receiver, even more than was given up for Hill or Diggs. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot for a player like that to get moved.
I think so too. And if you're giving up that much, I think that you would lean on trying to improve maybe your defensive line. You would lean on trying to maybe, I don't know. I think there are other positions that you're going to spend that on, not mentioning the fact that Juju Smith-Schuster is probably going to cost a lot of money. Yeah. And I'm fine with that. Like, keep Juju. I'm fine with keeping Juju, but
I think I've come to terms with that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's such a good fit. Just turn around and draft Jalen Hyatt from and prosper. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine with that. Z and Dara, this one was pretty funny. Why did the Chiefs get rid of Dan Sorensen on defense only to sign the Dan Sorensen of the offense in MVS? I love that characterization, making big plays out of nowhere and then boneheaded ones on other times.
I mean, I think it's a little bit more nuanced, just a little bit, because I feel like MVS does a lot for the offense. in terms of the field stretching and clearing different areas of the field with his speed, with his long speed. And those are things that we don't necessarily like notice, that we don't hone in on a game to game basis. You have to really like kind of study and look at it. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if he's going to still be here next year. I know they structured his contract in a way where they can get out fairly easily.
The third day of the league year, I believe that they have to make a decision.
And you're already seeing his snap counts kind of go down. So I'm wondering if they're not already preparing themselves for that reality a little bit.
I mean, but you're right. He is the only real field stretcher right now. I know that Justin Watson gets some of those reps as well. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but they don't use Kadarius Toney in that way. They used McCole, not yet at least. Yeah, they used McCole Hardman in that way, but he's been hurt. Like he's not. I mean, who knows if we're even going to see him this week? They got a decision to make on a 21-day window coming up. It sounds like maybe he's not fully back, like ready to come back yet. So MVS is important to this offense to offer that vertical stretch because there isn't somebody else that they have there. It makes sense, why they may target a guy come next year. I mean, again, Jalen Hyatt. I'm just going to keep putting
it into the universe.
Exactly. So, by the way, if you're a member of the Discord, go to the Film Room channel. Maddie and I watched all 22 of Jalen Hyatt this week. Whew. He's fun. He's a
fun player.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Steve Gray asks, who do you think we see as cornerback 3 in the playoffs? Will it be whoever has the hot hand, or is Spags going to pick one and go with them? Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams doing a lot of rotating right now, Charles.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he even said today that he's going to keep doing the platoon thing. And I think what we're going to see is kind of what we've seen so far, which has been they're going to start off with Joshua Williams, and if teams start to pick on him, they're going to throw Jalen Watson in there. I think they like kind of the length and the skill set that Williams brings, and they want to keep giving him chances to kind of have it all click. And I don't know if he's going to get there this season, but just maybe.
Right.
And I think, having that ability to change up and go to one or the other, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not a bad thing. And we see both of those guys make plays. I think that's the good part about it. It's not like Joshua Williams is getting whooped, so now they're putting Jalen Watson in, or Jalen Watson's getting taken advantage of, so we got to put Joshua Williams back in. Now, both of them are holding their own well enough. There are mistakes, understandable, out of this rookie, group here. One of those is a 7th round draft pick, and he played in the Pac-12, so he's at least got a little bit more experience. And then the other one played at Fayetteville State. So, I mean, like, there are adjustment periods, all of that. So to see both of those guys contributing in this way, it's good so far. I do think that they'll platoon them for a little while, unless, like, let's say one of them comes out on a heater. They come up against Stephon Diggs, and Joshua Williams all of a sudden is just absolutely locking him down. Spags is going to be like, well, here's the Jalen Watson drive. I say, as there's Darius Harris drives, but I don't suspect that we're going to see that. I think you'll be a little more committed to some of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Last one here, Charles. We'll get out of here. Maddie asked a question while we were recording this tonight. To give you guys kind of a hint on when we're recording it, is Thursday night. He's obviously watching the Washington Huskies play. Big fan.
I've had the game on my other monitor.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So you'll be able to. I'm going to let you start with this. He asked me, but I'm going to let you start with this. Does Michael Penix have the most aesthetic left-handed QB motion of all time, Charles?
It's definitely aesthetic is one way to put it. Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'm trying to go through the memory bank here and think about some of these left-handed throwing motions I've seen.
Well, I mean, okay, Steve Young obviously is well up there.
Yeah.
Boomer Esiason was also a lefty.
Yeah.
Tua is a lefty.
Right.
I would put Penix's throwing motion a little bit higher than Tua's.
Above,
Yeah. But I mean, there's not a ton of lefty quarterbacks. Mike Vick was in there. I don't know that he was especially aesthetic as a thrower, but I don't know. Penix is way up there.
Yeah.
Maddie's saying this because he knows I love Penix. I
like
really do.
He's a fun quarterback.
He's a gamer, man.
I was thinking earlier tonight, I'm like, God, I hope he stays out of the AFC West.
Yeah. We're to the point now where it feels like at this point, like, oh, cool. I can't wait for 2 years from now when Caleb Williams and Drake May round out the Denver Broncos and Las Vegas Raiders quarterback rotation there. And like,
if the NFC does not start taking some of these quarterbacks, I'm going to pull my hair out. I'm gonna start writing weekly letters to Roger Goodell about reforming every division in football.
It's becoming a monopoly. It's becoming a monopoly of quarterbacks.
The AFC
let's spread it around. Or Patrick Mahomes can continue to beat them and be the best quarterback in the AFC and in the NFL.
Easy there,
time and time again. So
Tyler Palko was a lefty.
Tyler Palko was a lefty.
He had a pretty interesting throwing motion.
That was definitely not Tyler Palko. We're definitely not going with Tyler Palko in that one. Now, if you would have said Thick Pen, we would have had something cooking there, buddy. So, all right, that is going to do it this week for 21 questions. I thank Charles for joining me. Yet again here. We will be back with a post-game show after all of this. You can find Charles every single day on KCSN Daily. That's kcsn.substack.com and at Chiefs Wire. Go. Make sure you follow him. Follow everything he's doing. He's great. We will return. Everybody, please, please, please be kind to each other. We will catch you later.